Sized everything.
I call to order the February 26th, 2024 meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission. Would the secretary please take roll call?
Commissioner Danilevich,
Here.
Commissioner Fluger,
Here.
Commissioner Heidemann, absent. Commissioner Hankins,
Here.
Commissioner Holmes,
Here.
Commissioner Stanton,
Here.
Commissioner Klinger is here.
We have a quorum. Everyone should have received a copy of the minutes from the January 22nd, 2024 meeting. Any additions or corrections?
Motion to approve without correction.
Do I get a second?
I'll
Second.
second.
Go ahead.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion is approved. Okay, so let's see. Is there any communications?
I just wanted to announce, we do have a vacancy on our Planning and Economic Development Committee. That's a committee that hears everything that you guys voted on. And so I encourage you, if you have anybody that's interested in participating and volunteering with the village, they can fill out a volunteer application form on our website.
All right.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
So next on the agenda, 5, 6, 7, and 8 are all related to one item. So we will discuss all those as one, but then we will go through and we'll talk about each one of the different proposals one at a time. So with that, Carrie, can you give us a staff report, please?
Yep, like you said, these items 5 through 8 all pertain to the same garage currently under construction in the 9900 block of Queen Oaks on the east side of the road, opposite side from the river. When Queen Oaks was dedicated as a public roadway, the subject property became a lot with a little garage there, but no home. Also, when the road was dedicated, that put the garage right at the front of the property line, right on the edge of the right-of-way. The applicant owns the property now, and last spring he did inquire about replacing this old garage with a new garage. And it was explained to him that there are a few reasons why he can't do that. And he could apply for variances from some of those issues, such as there not being a home on the property or require a principal structure before we issue permits for an accessory structure. As he explained to me at the time, the roof really did need to be replaced. So he did get a permit for the roof replacement. He had asked me at the time, what if he starts to work on the roof and some boards are rotted and he has to replace those boards? And I explained that to some extent you can replace some boards and it's just maintenance of an existing structure. But if it becomes clear that there's a lot of boards need to be replaced, he needs to talk to us about how much of an improvement this is actually going to turn into. Then later we found out that there was being a large garage built on Queen Oaks. I went down there with our code enforcement inspector to check it out, and we spoke with the applicant, and he stated that he was just replacing the rotten boards, as I had told him he could do. It just so happened that the entire thing was rotten boards. He did maintain one wall of the existing original garage, and felt that, and staying on the same footprint, felt that that is just maintenance of an existing structure. But at this point, it clearly is a substantial improvement. I actually put on the roof permit card that this structure cannot be enlarged, replaced, demolished, relocated in any way, because I was concerned that I just want to make it clear that we're on the same page, that this is a roof permit only. If you need to start doing anything else, you need to come to us about it. The very front of the garage is in the floodway portion of the floodplain, which is regulated by the IDNR. So before dealing with trying to get variances from us, I suggested that the applicant contact the IDNR. They did approve a permit for the portion of the garage in the floodway, because they felt that tiny little sliver of the garage is not going to affect flood levels in the floodway. However, this garage is still in the 100-year floodplain. We have an entire chapter of Village Code regarding flood area development, and one of the regulations is that permits cannot be issued for substantial improvements. unless the entire structure is flood protected. A substantial improvement is defined as an improvement valued at more than 50% of the assessed value of the building. We don't know what the value of that old garage was. The township never assessed it. But just the fact that more than 50% of the old garage was demoed, we know that this is a substantial improvement. And flood protecting the structure means that the structure needs to actually be elevated at least 1 foot above the base flood elevation. That's our code requirement. It doesn't need to have a flow-through foundation like it would if it was in the floodway that IDNR regulates, because that water kind of has a current to it. We want it to be able to flow underneath the raised structures. But it could have a thicker foundation. It just needs to be up high enough so that the garage itself, the walls, the floor, the contents of the garage are not going to be susceptible to flood damage in the future. But the IDNR did approve their permit. The village's, like I said, the village's ability to participate in the National Flood Insurance Program is based on our regulations that FEMA has reviewed and approved. If we aren't enforcing our own flood development regulations, they're going to notice, and it could make flood insurance rates more expensive to all of our residents in the village. And it could actually disqualify us from being eligible for flood mitigation funding in the future that comes from FEMA. So this may not seem like a big deal in this particular instance, but if we approve variances from our flood development regulations, it could come back to bite us. So staff is recommending that if this garage is allowed to be built on this lot, it really needs to be elevated to be flood protected as our code requires. Beyond that, there's the issue of the garage being on a lot where there is no home, and I'm actually recommending approval of the variance from the regulation that requires a principal structure here. This is a unique property because it initially had a garage without a home, and because of the riverfront character of the neighborhood, people desire to have storage for their vehicles and equipment that they use on the river. Ideally, a garage here would continue to be owned by someone who resides in the neighborhood on Queen Oaks. There's no way to ensure that that happens, but I do think it makes sense in this case to allow an accessory structure without a principal structure here. This garage that's under construction is 28 by 38 feet, which is a total of 1,064 square feet. On a lot this size, an accessory structure should not exceed 1,000 square feet. But especially since this would be the only structure on the lot, a garage this size should not be a detriment to the surroundings, and I'm recommending approval of the variance to allow a larger garage here, which is agenda item 7. Lastly, this garage is right next to the right-of-way. Like I mentioned before, the original garage was also right next to the right-of-way as a result of Queen Oaks becoming a public road. When that original garage was built, Queen Oaks was just a private road, so front setbacks weren't an issue. This garage at this size, right at the front of the property, doesn't make sense in this neighborhood, in my opinion. It's visually imposing. It doesn't provide for any room to park in the driveway without actually backing up into the right-of-way. And it could actually potentially obstruct access to the fire hydrant that's right there as well if you have vehicles parked right there. So I'm recommending denial of the front setback variance. And I'll add the front setback on the plat dedicating the roadway is required to be at least 30 feet. And this garage is right on the front property line because he did build it where the original garage was. So in summary, I'm recommending that the garage be allowed on a lot that does not have a home, and that the 1,064 square foot size could be approved. However, the garage should be properly set back from the front property line, at least 30 feet. And it really needs to be elevated to be flood protected. In a flood event, the FEMA flood maps indicate that the water here would get about 3 feet high. So that garage would need to be elevated about 4 feet, which would be a foot above base flood elevation like our code requires. And I want to point out that regardless of all these variances, if we permit construction of this garage, a floodplain development permit would need to be applied for before we can issue building permits. This is a permit that's reviewed by our village engineer to ensure that flood water isn't obstructed or redirected. So there may be other things that need to be done to make sure that floodwater isn't going onto neighboring property. But regardless, we can't allow construction of something that may impact flood levels or divert floodwater, like I said. So that's not really a concern with what the variances we're looking at. The variance from the flood protection requirement is literally just that the building itself isn't going to be flood damaged. We aren't looking at surrounding properties because that will be taken care of if permits are issued. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Carrie. Is the applicant present? Can you please approach?
I'm going to swear you in. Can you raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God?
I do.
State your name and address for the record, please.
Jeff Rush, 9936 Queen Oaks Drive, Machesney
very
Park,
much.
Illinois.
Is there anything additional that you'd like to add to Carrie's report?
As this is new to me, so as far as like a rebuttal or what?
Just, is there any additional information, thoughts for what you had based on the report?
I mean, you can just tell us about the project.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, first of all, I got a little bit excited whenever she said I could replace the rotten wood and everything fell apart. So, as far as the garage, if I have a little bit of a problem with the 4 feet because it's metal on the sides. I understand if it's a house. You have insulation, you have wiring, you have drywall, you have flooring, and so on and so forth. This is wood, metal. It's not going to be insured under flood insurance. If it does get flooded, it's wood and metal. It's not like I need to replace anything. The owner of the property previous said, I've talked to, he said that the building was made in 1930s. The water has never been up into the garage. And if it floods 3 feet, I hate to say this, but the whole neighborhood's gone. So, the 4 foot elevation is kind of I can put a garage door in the front, garage door in the back. There's flow through. A buddy of mine and I have constructed, we can set door walls on the wall to elevate so that it can be flow through that way. And the stuff that's going to be in there is everything that's water related anyways. The boats, the skis, the stuff like that. So it's not like insurance. It's all water related. The property was, like I said, it's rotten. In your report, you had said it's probably because it was flooded. And the gentleman who is to the south of me, who still owns the property, has said that there is no water that's been up there to that garage area. It has been on the west side. The river side has been in the east side because it's 5-6 feet lower in the back before the hill. But it's never been in the house area, in the garage area. Is there anything that you would like to ask me of?
Is there any questions that you guys?
I don't, again, I'm new to this, so I'm trying to
You're doing fine.
Yep.
make sure that all the bases are covered, so.
And I'll specify the 4 foot, according to the contour data that we have available to us and the flood maps that show how high the water is predicted to get in a 100-year flood event, it would be about 3 feet based on the contours the elevation of the land now. I don't know how accurate
Is that a
is.
prediction?
That's what the FEMA flood maps show.
Curious question, is the entire parcel a CX floodplain? Do you know?
The back of it is not.
The back is
And
not.
I did not provide a flood map overlay in your packets, but
Can we bring it up on the screen?
Bring one up.
The flood,
I'm sorry.
the floodway?
What are you asking? for?
I was asking,
if the entire property is floodplain. The very back is not.
Okay.
It goes uphill in the back there.
And how much, do you know approximately how much space on that back? Is it just,
I think I put
Well,
in
the problem with the back is that it's like a
yes, it's
30-foot
way
hill.
uphill.
oh, it is.
Yeah, it, from the front, it'll drop down probably 6 feet to a certain area, and then it goes up like 30 feet.
Because that's what I was wondering is if there was enough square footage in the back and to be out of the floodplain.
And that's, you'll see in your packets that the standards for the first variance from our flood development regulations are different than our regular variances. And one of them asks if it's possible to not build this in the floodplain. And I think I put that
Okay,
standard is actually met because the only area not in the floodplain on this property is in the very back and it's
Okay.
up higher.
just wanted to double check.
and you said it's, how much of an incline is it?
Oh, it's like this. I ride the lawnmower up, and it's kind of tricky. I have to lean forward to make sure I don't fall backwards.
Because that was one of the questions I had was could it all be shifted back into the
And
area that's,
As far as like the depth of the hill, I don't think that it's far enough. Like I would have to build stilts or dig into the ground.
Yeah, you'll see in the first staff report, the first standard is development activity cannot be located outside the floodplain. I agree with that. I think that standard has been met.
All right, so what are we looking at here? Is this,
Oh, it's only 60 feet. I see that. I missed it. Sorry.
the slanted marks are the floodplain? And of course, the green is
The green is the 100-year.
the 100-year.
Yeah,
So where's his property?
So my property is approximately here.
Okay,
Can you zoom in a little?
I'm sorry?
I was asking if that could be zoomed in a little.
yeah, she's zooming it, yeah, get it bigger. Yeah, you could stay up there and show us where you're at.
I think it's got the,
can you turn the aerial on? Is the green the floodplain? Yeah, the 100-year.
river's the blue,
Yeah,
so but I live in between there.
Well, it doesn't show up very good, but everything
Okay,
between
right
there is floodway.
This is Tracy's house. I think it's right here.
Lunch, I bet there's Lindy's lunch.
There's Lindy's lunch, so it's right here.
Yeah, everything between the blue and the river is
Is flood.
floodway that's regulated by the state.
The river's rose.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
We have to follow the rules, and the rules are if you're gonna speak, you gotta come up, be sworn in, you gotta get on the mic and everything, so we can't
No, I'm
just.
sorry.
he's got a
I'm
chance,
not
yeah.
giving you a hard, I'm not yelling at you, I'm just saying you gotta follow the rules.
Thank you.
Sorry.
It'll happen. So I'm curious about the state permit. I'm pretty familiar with it. So what exactly, when you went to the state, what was it that you were applying for?
To build a garage on my property.
To build a garage? To take that one garage? Did you tell them you were going to tear that down or
Yes.
add on to it?
No, I was gonna take that one out because it was rotten. I sent him pictures. I believe I gave her the packet, so if you have the packet,
we haven't.
it shows what I was building, where I was building it.
Mhm.
And then like to take out the rotten in the pictures, 1930s building
Yeah.
type.
This,
Um,
I'm sorry. This is what's already there.
Yes, that's.
Yeah.
He's already removed the garage.
Yes.
When I told him to apply to the IDNR, this was already there.
That was
Yeah.
already there.
And
Without permits.
And I had pictures of the previous building. I had pictures of it as I was taking it down, just in case they wanted to see what it looked like, or you guys.
Okay. Because in the floodway,
Mhm.
you can't have any structure that's permanent more than 70 square feet.
And they determined that because the floodway is just the very front of this garage,
And-
that tiny sliver
So,
of building.
yeah,
isn't
That's why I'm a
gonna
little
affect the
confused at 70
floodways.
square feet versus 1,000 from the state
Yeah,
approving
The part in
that.
the floodway is only the very front of the
The-
garage.
They said that it was the
Gotcha.
garage door.
Hmm.
That was all, the front part of the garage, that was it. It was in the flood
That's in the floodway.
Way.
way. Because he actually laughed at me. He's like, you seriously, you want a permit for this? You're not even, I'm like, that's what Machesney wants.
I know, I've been through it. Yeah.
Sorry.
No, I totally get it. I understand what you want to do. It's all these layers.
Yes, and I'm,
Yes,
yeah.
and it's very, very tricky to get through. So
And I'm hoping you guys will help me get through it.
we're working on it.
Well, and I guess the key thing that I picked up earlier was the flood protected. And so have you researched like the different options of making that flood protected?
As far as,
For different construction materials or methods to make sure that that meets the minimum of flood protected in that spot?
no, because I was told that I could not add dirt, I could not add concrete, I could not add, so until somebody says I can do this, or then,
Yeah, basically flood protected means it's good, it's high enough that it's not gonna sustain flood damage.
or could we, like I said, could I have a wall at the bottom, like the bottom 3 feet, to be able to take it off so that it's a flow through? The only thing that will be there will be 6x6 poles that hold up the roof. Because it's not, I understand the lifting of the house.
Yeah.
It's not a house. It's nothing it's metal on the side and it's wood. There's not gonna be electric down there because of possibility of water.
Right.
And if I can remove the side wall, I'm not talking the whole wall, I'm talking, because
Mhm.
like she said, that's the possibility of it getting up. Well, then it's a flow through.
Well, and I just want to specify, our regulations aren't worried about it obstructing floodwater. That'll
Okay.
be handled with the floodplain development permit. Our regulations are that the structure has to be flood protected, which means it has to be up above the base flood elevation. So even the flow through, water's still going to get in the garage, and that's what our code prohibits.
Mhm.
And because someday somebody might have flood insurance on this, and we've permitted something that's going to end up being flood damaged potentially, and that's
Right.
what we're trying to avoid doing.
But would it be flood damaged if the walls could be taken off?
Depends on the damage of the property itself at the time.
The state doesn't allow it. Yeah. That's the
I'm sorry,
problem.
state doesn't
The
allow.
state doesn't allow it.
Allow the walls?
Walls to be temporarily
Well,
removed.
we're talking about an area that the state isn't regulating.
Oh, well,
They've
that's
already
true.
approved the very front
Right.
garage.
So the state gonna regulate none of the, adding of
Everything else.
soil or anything like that? Because that's only in the floodway.
They only care about the floodway,
Mhm.
and
Okay.
they said what he's doing in the floodway is fine.
No restrictions
It's
on the
our
flood
flood
zone.
regulations. We have an entire chapter 23 of our code is our flood area development regulations that has these regulations for all the rest of the 100-year floodplain.
Okay. You mean from the state code, the
No,
23, you
it's
pulled it out of
it's
there?
our
and-
code.
Our code.
It's our code,
Okay.
but FEMA had to review that code.
Yeah.
And agree that it's doing a good job of protecting future flood damage in the
Mhm.
village for us
Okay.
to even
listening.
participate in the National Flood Insurance Program.
Mhm.
But my concern is if I add to, like she said, you can add dirt to lift it up. But if I add dirt, doesn't that push water to somewhere else? If I have an idea to prevent that.
Regardless, you would need to get a floodplain development permit that our village engineer will review. And sometimes he requires what's called compensatory storage, where the flood storage capacity on your property
Mhm.
is not going to change. So if you do bring dirt and build it up, he might require you to
Take dirt away.
Take dirt
To
away.
take away.
elsewhere. Yeah.
From,
It's gotta be
so
a
take
zero
away from.
sum. If you bring in some, you gotta take some away.
And
Okay.
regardless, if you are able to get permits to keep constructing this garage or to move it or whatever the board ultimately decides, you will need that floodplain development permit from the village.
Mhm.
And that'll look at how you propose building it and determine whether you need to do something like the compensatory storage or removing dirt in some other part of your yard
Okay.
to not
And that would
change the
be
flood
if
storage
I have to
capacity.
pull in dirt or if I can use the walls.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, essentially, it should be like stilted, right?
It doesn't have to be
No?
because it's not in the floodway. The
Okay.
floodway would want it to have the flow-through foundation. We just want to see that the floor and the walls and everything inside
It's
is
probably more
high enough to
economical
not
to
be.
still it, though.
Mhm.
I'm
I think
sorry.
so.
I said I thought it likely might be more economical to stilt it as opposed to filling in all underneath it, assuming it can be
Well,
structurally
it is a
sound.
garage with a driveway too.
Well,
Well,
yeah, you'd have
and
to have
that's
an
just,
approach.
that's the
You'd
other
have to
thing
have
is
an
that
approach, of course.
I would have to have, to fill all the way up to the road. Because she's requesting 30 feet back. So it'll end up being 42 feet from the road. At 4 foot high. At 40 feet wide. So either way, that's a
I'm not sure
substantial.
your approach would have to be
No.
3 feet high from the road. You would just drive in on the normal grade and then go have a,
Ramp.
a
ramp.
reasonable ramp approach up to go in.
Mhm.
I mean, obviously.
Yeah.
it can't be
Yeah,
too steep
either,
because
either
you
way,
put
there's a
boats and stuff in
substantial
there. I get
amount
it.
of dirt that has to be put there. I mean, and, the angle has to be decent enough that you're pulling a trailer, it doesn't I'm not trying to.
I understand. You're gonna have a gentle.
Right. And if I can do with the sidewalls, where they can come out, and I have the front garage door, the back garage door, it becomes where it's just a pull through. There's no water that's affected as far as pushing it to somebody else.
Jay, did you have a question?
To get the 30-foot front yard setback, how much into the hill are you?
It goes down.
It's pretty,
Insignificant.
it's
It goes
pretty
down.
flat.
It goes down, so I will
Okay.
actually have to lift it up higher than 4 feet. If I go back 30 feet,
Okay,
okay, so if I go back 30 feet from, this will be the front of the garage. Back here, I'll have to raise it up probably 6 feet or 7 feet because of the drop that goes down.
The elevation.
before the hill.
well, so where's the grade determined then? Is it through
Well,
the
we'd have
back
to see
or,
where he ultimately ends up putting the garage.
and no concrete floor then, right? It looks like gravel.
No.
Or it sounds like gravel.
Can I see the picture? You can see the drop.
Yeah, I was trying to look at it, but I can't tell.
You talked about the drop, right
This-
past the
This one?
garage.
Yes. Right here. So if you look, I'll show all of you. Down at the bottom, I have 16-inch concrete
Right.
that is level. And up here in the front, it's level with this corner all the way back to this corner. The very back corner is raised already 1.5 feet.
So as you go
So
back 30
So
feet, it's just gonna get
here-
lower. and
Chips
lower.
that way and
So
that
this
way.
is the southwest corner of this garage. And this corner is raised up about 1.3 feet. This one is raised up 1.5 feet.
Mhm.
So that this is level.
Right. Okay.
So just in the 40 feet from the,
That's what
From the
I
property
wanted to
line,
see if they
it
gave
drops
an
1.5 feet.
explanation.
So you would have to start at the back of
No, so
the.
this is the drive about here, 2
Yeah.
foot.
It's about 38 or so.
Oh, and the 30 feet setback, it will be,
Almost the front of it would be to the back of your,
it's farther back than that. Oh, no, wait, it is.
'Cause
8
it's
feet from
38,
the-
right?
It's 8 feet from the very back,
Right.
so it's still gonna be a foot and a half.
Right.
So I have to raise it 5.5 feet. And that's just at the front.
Good question down there.
I'd just like to make a point. You're in the 100-year flood zone, the floodplain. That, people used to think about that as the water would get that high once every 100 years. But FEMA, you've seen what's going on in television out in California, the water running down the streets like the river. They've never seen a flood like that before either. FEMA has started calling it the 1% chance every year that the water will get that high. So at some point in time, that property is going to flood. Might be not in our lifetime,
Well,
at some point in
but
time.
you're making
it
a
will.
prediction, and I mean, I understand.
Yeah,
I
we
understand it's
are.
backed by,
FEMA is making a
I
prediction
understand
that
that.
it's for the protection of the public.
and I understand that.
Well,
But if we issue you a permit and you flood next year, you're gonna come back and say, well, the village, you give me a permit.
No, why?
We're worried about our house first.
well,
yeah, and I think
If-
the whole ordinance was put into place after basically the 2008 flood, which was a 100-year flood, and then we had two more 100-year floods within like the next 3 or 4 years. We had 3 100-year floods within a few years, and we had 600 homes impacted, and we had, all down in the Shore Drive area where, if you drive down there, you know exactly what I'm
And
talking
shortly
about.
after
all those
that,
houses
the
that
village
were torn
started
down.
buying properties down there. to
I don't know
prevent-
exactly how this property was hit.
But that's just it, it wasn't. I mean, yes, it was. The very back of it was hit. Like I could walk in the water in the very back of the property, which drops before the hill.
Yeah, I was down in that area, I was here then, and I remember touring and going down through that whole area.
Mhm.
Again, this was the Shore Drive area, which would be to the north of you, as opposed to.
To the south.
Well,
To the south.
you could even look at the
South.
pins that were put in the road. And the pin that was put in the road on how high it came up was 1, 2, 3. It was down here. It was down here is where one pin was. And my property is up here. And the other one was right in front of our house, which is 600 feet from my property.
I'm guessing the pins were benchmarks used for surveying, but not necessarily.
No. That's where the water got to in the road, and they put a stake in the road, a nail.
I'm not sure what
They did it there, and they did it down at Todd's house. Yeah, on how high the water got.
Question.
So not necessarily a question, but a concern. Not that, I don't want to make it sound like I'm not concerned about the property that you're building. The greater concern is the impact that it could have to the village in regards to the FEMA coverage of insurance. Because even if you don't have a claim, if it impacts anything in regards to any other properties, and they come back and re-inspect, and we allow something that does not fit in our ordinances, it could impact your neighbors as well in regards to any of the claims they have. So,
No, and I understand that, but I would believe that if I put dirt in there, it would have a bigger effect than if I had a flow through.
Well, and again, I think we already talked that there may be, zero-sum game, pull from some, put someplace else, as long as it can still flow, and that would be that other permit. So is there any other questions for the applicant at this time?
It's kind of more for Carrie. So, and it involves you. So what about the whole permit for a carport and just forget about this permanent building in that area?
The carport wouldn't be an issue because it
won't be
has
an
no
issue.
walls.
Right. Do you mind if I suggest something?
Well, we're
we
really
have
just
an
looking.
application
Yeah.
before us.
Yeah,
That's
for
what we
that.
need to
That's
focus
what
on.
I'm saying, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, his
So wouldn't it be
application
like a
is to keep
carport,
the
even though I
building
can
where
drop
it
the
is.
walls?
We wouldn't
if I
allow
can-
you to, I mean.
I'm sorry.
It would have to be constructed with no walls,
And that,
not something that you could drop the walls later. That wouldn't comply. Because you may not be home when it's flooding. You know, there's people who intend to have a flow through and then they start stacking stuff under there and it's not functioning as a flow through. It's a problem.
well, if they start stacking under there, they're not very smart. Sorry.
Well, let's go ahead and move on. There are other people
Mhm.
that, for public, that would like to speak. So I'll ask you to go ahead and return to your seat for now. And the next person on the list is Rick Derrickson. If you would like to approach if you have anything to add. Derrickson? Rick
Yeah.
Derrickson?
Mr. Derrickson, I need to swear you in. Raise your right hand. Solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
State your name and address for the record, please.
Rick Derrickson, 9832 Queen Oaks Drive.
Thank you.
What would you like to add?
Well, I just have a question. If he was to take dirt from the hill behind him and moved it forward, would that create would make enough space for the water?
That would be part of the permit for the actual building and that
Yeah.
would take
Even if
place
these-
after
Even if
tonight.
these variances are approved, he still needs to actually apply for a building permit.
Oh, sure.
And that would be addressed.
But he would be allowed to do that.
I can't guarantee
You
that.
can't take it from an area that's out of the floodway and bring it in and count that as the zero-sum game. If you put something in the floodplain or way, you have to take it out. In
Well,
the
that's-
way, not
In the
up on
way.
the hill.
Yeah.
Right,
Not up on the
that's
hill.
kind of what I'm saying. You'd move it from here to here in the same lot, off the same lot.
That may be something that's required for us to issue a permit. We don't know yet.
And that'd be more of a conversation with the city engineer, correct?
That's right.
I didn't know if that might be a solution to,
It would be a solution to allow the garage to stay exactly the way it is and continue constructing it.
right.
Because that's not what he's proposing to do. He's proposing to keep it where it is, ground level, and continue constructing it.
That wouldn't help in that situation? To keep it where it's at, just move the dirt forward?
No.
No? Well, I'd really like to see him complete his project. He's put an awful lot of work into it, and we do think it will improve the neighborhood. What was there before was pretty rotted and decrepit, and it was a mess. And he's just trying to clean up the neighborhood, and I'd like to see that happen.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Chris Schmidt. Oh,
One of my neighbors was not able to be here. He said he wanted to, but he gave me a letter that states what he would like to say. Is that possible?
you can submit it to us and we can add it to the record.
No, he did do the wrong address. And I said, it's XX because there is no address. He's like,
Hmm.
oh, yeah. So
We'll mark it for this
Okay.
property.
Okay, thank you. Chris Schmidt. If there's anything else you'd like to add, come up and get sworn in.
Mr. Schmidt, you need to raise your right hand. Thank you. Are you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
State your name and address for the record.
My name is Chris Schmidt, 9840 Queen Oaks Drive. I live right across from the garage. I don't understand, I guess I know you guys are all doing your thing. There was a garage there, and now he can't have a garage. So if I have my garage and something happens to it, I can't have a garage either? Is what you're saying?
If you remove your garage, any new construction would have to comply with our regulations. That older existing garage was pre-existing,
right?
It could have stayed the way it is.
But he just
once-
improved on it.
Yeah, and once it's improved beyond 50% of the value of the garage, that's what kicks in our regulations, is considered a substantial.
But we don't know the
improvement.
value of what the garage was, so we don't know really it was 50%
Well,
improved.
It was
We know it was more than 50% demolished. That's also kicks in the requirement to comply with current regulations.
It was a non-conforming structure. Perhaps your garage is a non-conforming structure. It can stay, but if you take it out and you want to put something back, you have to comply with all the new rules. And that's what we're struggling with here, these newer rules.
Okay, so that applies to houses and everything.
That's
So
right.
like if tomorrow's a tornado, a tree falls on my house, I am out of there.
If it's a non-conforming structure, to rebuild it, you'd have to rebuild it in conformity. It would have to be raised up, might have to have, if you're down closer to the river, it would have to be up, flow through, the whole bit.
But even then, okay, so like he was just gonna do the roof and some of the walls. That is
Well, but
not,
His permit said you can do the roof.
okay,
He did more than the roof.
Because of the rot.
I get it.
right, because,
He did-
right, when he
did
got
more
into
than-
it,
didn't
he
do
was
what
just,
He
okay,
didn't do what the permit allowed him to do.
okay. Because I think what he's doing is great, and I'd like to see it be done also. I know you said about the little short driveway, but it's never blocked anything, and I come and go through there all the time. So I guess that's all I have to add.
Okay.
But I'm for it, so hopefully something will work out good. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Last person on this one is Tracy Cardas. What's the last name?
Cordis,
Cordis.
yes,
Can you raise your right hand? Solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Name and address for the record, please.
Tracy Cordis, 9911 Queen Oaks Drive.
Thank you.
I would just like to say I am the previous owner of that property and garage. One of the reasons why I no longer have it was because of the rotting in the garage. It was dangerous. I first was, put little things in here. There were droppings that no animal in the neighborhood could actually go. They were this big around inside that garage. The rotting wood, so it was a hazard to a person, could really get hurt. They both have very small children. They do keep their boating stuff in there. They keep life jackets. If one of the kids were to go down there and that thing fell down, they would probably be killed. So I can see why they are rebuilding this, and I just hope that you'll help them get this through, because it was a big eyesore. If you ever went down the road, it was bad.
I've seen the pictures.
Yeah. So that's all I wanted to say.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, let's see. So open up for discussion.
See if anybody else
Oh,
wants to speak.
was there anybody else that wanted to speak on this item? Okay. So to open this up for discussion, we need to have a motion. And so we're going to open it up for a motion on ordinance 1324, the variance to allow a substantial improvement in the 100-year floodplain without complying with flood protection requirements.
Motion approved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
A second. Okay. Any discussions, topics?
This is the ordinance
Yeah.
the state allowed, right?
What's that?
Is this the one the state allowed?
The state is okay with the front of that garage being in the floodway.
Right, that's what this one.
So
This,
they were only concerned with this little corner.
Right, yeah, I see that, yeah.
this first item that you guys are voting on is to allow it to continue to be constructed
As it is.
at ground level instead
Where
of
it
being
is.
elevated.
Oh, okay.
Jim?
The motion was for the variance for this substantial improvement. And I personally, I can't focus on one element without looking at the thing in total. And the one thing that I can't bring myself to approve is the setback requirement. If you look at the exhibit that we've got in our packet, it shows where this structure is located.
The survey.
This one, No, the whole thing is in the building setback. It's not just,
Well, that's the original building, and the building
and,
now
and the
is
new one is
larger.
in the substantially the same
Mhm.
place.
Same footprint.
It's not like just a few feet or a few inches into the building setback. It may be a few feet or a few inches into the right of way. It's like 30 feet into the building setback. And I don't think we can approve something there. So with respect to item number 1 or number 5, the substantial improvements, I'm going to be voting no.
Any other discussion?
I think on standard number 4, variation detrimental public welfare and injurious to other property or improvements in neighborhood in which the property is located. I think
He's on
that you
page
have
20,
met there.
by the way.
You have met, but I think it's supposed to be not met. Because in your description, you're kind of saying it is, you're saying it would not be detrimental, but yet it's counterintuitive because it is detrimental to the floodplain, according to our regulations.
Okay. Thank you.
I don't think any of us have a problem with the rebuilding. I mean, it's a good looking structure compared to what was there. It's just where it's sitting. I think that's the big issue, where it sits. And it doesn't meet any code. So, I mean, it's.
Right?
Okay.
Ask them if they read and reviewed the findings.
Have you guys read and reviewed the findings of fact on item number 5?
Yes.
And do you approve it?
Yes.
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 Okay. Can we get a roll call vote on this one, please?
Sure. Commissioner Stanton,
No.
Commissioner Holmes,
No.
Commissioner Danny Levitch,
No.
Commissioner Klinger is a no. Commissioner Hankins,
No.
Commissioner Pluger,
No.
So this item here will go forward with a non-positive recommendation to the Planning and Economic Development meeting on March 4th.
And that's
So that's just the,
to not elevate it.
yeah. So that's what I want to tell you. So we'll vote on all 4 of these and then we'll give you a summary about what the next steps are for this. But this is just the first one about it being a substantial improvement in the floodplain. So now we're going to discuss the other 3 requests that you have out there.
Okay, so the no was for,
Building in the floodplain with the way it is right now.
okay. So it'll,
So, yeah.
We got 3 more to
We got three more to discuss. I just wanted to give you a heads up on what the next steps were. So,
trying to follow.
yep. No worries. Okay, so now do we have a motion to discuss item number 6, ordinance number 1424, variance to allow an accessory structure where there is no principal building?
So moved.
We have a first, do we have a second? Okay, so now with this one, do we have any discussion around this topic?
And this is recommended for approval by the staff.
That's right.
Right. And this is just, be able to build a garage, some structure on the other side of the street. where you're at.
Without a house being.
Without
on
a
the same
house
property.
being there.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, has everyone read and agree with the finding of fact?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, can we get a roll call vote on this one, please?
Commissioner Pluger,
Yes.
Commissioner Hankins.
Yes.
Mr. Klinger is a yes. Commissioner Danny Levitch,
Yes.
Commissioner Holmes,
Yes.
Commissioner Stanton.
Yes.
Okay, so this one will move forward with a positive recommendation. Moving on to item number 7, do we have a motion to discuss ordinance number 1524, variance from accessory structure size regulations?
So moved.
First, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussions around this item?
And again, comes with a positive recommendation from staff.
This is just a little over the size.
Yeah,
Correct.
64.
64 square feet too
Yeah.
big.
All right.
And this one does have some conditions if it does move forward. Just make sure you guys are aware of that one.
Which one is that? What are the conditions? Let's see.
The conditions are that the variance shall allow construction of this proposed 28 by 38 structure, but no additional structures shall be allowed on the property.
Mhm.
And vehicles and equipment at the property shall be regularly stored inside the garage rather than outside of the garage.
Gotcha. Okay.
Okay, if there's no other discussion, do the commissioners agree with the findings of fact?
Yes.
Yes,
And can we get a roll call vote on this one?
Sure. Commissioner Holmes,
Yes.
Commissioner Stanton,
Yes.
Commissioner Fluger,
Yes.
Commissioner Hankins,
yes,
Commissioner Klinger is a yes. Commissioner Danny Levitch.
Yes. So this one, we'll move forward with a positive recommendation to the next meeting. Next up is item number 8, ordinance number 1624, the variance from the front setback requirement. Is there a motion to approve this one?
So moved.
And a second?
second,
Okay. So discussions around this, just reiterating what you had said before, just that the whole building is within the setback, which is definitely a concern with this, which is why we're looking at the variance. Is there any other discussions around the setback requirement? This one does not have a positive recommendation. This is staff recommends denial of this one due to where it's at in the setback. Okay, with no discussion, can we have, is everyone read and agreed with finding the fact?
Yes.
yes,
Okay, and a roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Klinger is a no. Commissioner Hankins,
no,
Commissioner Fluger,
No.
Commissioner Stanton,
No.
Commissioner Holmes,
No.
Commissioner Danny Levitch.
No. So this one will not move forward with a positive recommendation. Yeah, go ahead and approach.
So if I was okay, that means I would have to move it back. Is that what this no means?
That's what
Right.
this no is we are not allowing the variance to let you build within that.
Build where it's at.
They're not recommending.
You're not
approval.
recommending, yes, we're not.
It-
yes.
it goes-
So in other
We're
words,
just-
if it's approved, it'll be moved back.
It would have to be.
If it's approved.
Yes, in the next, the planning and economic development would do that to look at and then moving that to the board.
So to be clear, we're a recommending body, okay? We hear the evidence, we swear you in, we take it all in. Now it's going to go to committee. You're welcome to come to that committee meeting and they'll recognize you and you can get up and talk. And then they'll make a recommendation to the full board and then it'll go to the board. All 4 of these will go to the
Okay.
board.
Again, newbie, thank you for.
And
for letting me-
you're welcome to, if you need clarification, we have 4 more that we have to do yet tonight, so
Yeah.
we can't spend more time. But you can call and talk to Carrie or tomorrow or whatever
Right.
during business hours.
Okay.
We've got it.
And-
We've got other people.
And we
waiting
do
for us.
recommend that you are at the meeting on March 4th at
Oh, I
5:30 for the
will.
planning and economic.
Yes, I will.
Okay.
All right, thanks.
Thank you very much. Okay, moving on to the next item number 9
And
on.
you guys don't need to stay unless you're.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can.
I mean, you are released.
It'll be interesting, actually.
I'm sure this
Thank you.
gentleman wants you to stay. and give input on his.
Okay, next up on the agenda is item number 9. Actually, 9, 10, and 11 are all related to the same property. So we will hear staff report on all of them and then bring up each one individually. So Carrie, we have staff report.
Yep, this is a vacant lot at the far north end of Alpine Road, where Alpine runs east and west there, just before Burden Road. And the applicant proposes a self-storage facility here. The proposed facility would have 4 buildings, 160 units total. There is a site plan in your packets. Like most self-storage, the applicant proposes steel buildings, which does not comply with our industrial design standards. And also the applicant would like to use chain link fencing around 3 sides of this facility rather than the solid fencing that our code requires. He's applied for the special use permit for the use itself and 2 variances for the steel exteriors and for the chain link fencing. I'm recommending approval of the special use permit. It's questionable whether the self-storage is really the highest and best use of the property here, but this lot has been vacant for a long time, and this portion of Alpine isn't like a commercial corridor. It isn't that heavily traveled. I don't see self-storage being a detriment to the surroundings in this area at all. This recommendation is with 4 recommended conditions, which are all pretty standard for a facility like this. We require a civil site plan before any improvements are done. The site plan should be consistent with the plan in your packets. No hazardous materials can be stored in the self-storage, and sign permits are required before any signage can go up, those things. In the past, our board has approved variances to allow steel mini storage buildings as long as there's some masonry on the most visible sides of these buildings. The applicant proposes a stone facade at the bottom of the street-facing side. You can see in your packets, the buildings would be oriented parallel to the road. So only the one building would really be visible from Alpine, and the bottom of that, he proposes having a stone facade there. I'm recommending approval of this variance with conditions. I think what is proposed would fit the area and would look nice. As for the desired chain link fencing, this request meets 4 of the 6 findings. And again, there's no hardship or special circumstance here, but it should not negatively impact the area. So staff's recommending approval of the variance to allow chain link fencing with conditions as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Carrie. Is the applicant present?
Yes.
Would you like to finally have your turn?
Yes, please.
Mr. Miller, once you get set, can you raise your right hand?
Yes,
Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God?
I do.
State your name and address for the record, please.
Steve Miller, 3682 Dynasty Lane in Rockford.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anything else you'd like to add to the staff report, please?
Yes, Carrie Houston has been very helpful in guiding me through the process. And as you were looking through your packets, you may have noticed something was missing. So I have an architect's rendering of the front facade of the north building, which would be facing Alpine Road. So that's really my fault for getting these in late. So let me pass out the architectural rendering.
And this is, you said this is just the one north building that has the masonry on it?
Yes.
The one that's facing the north side? Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Was there anything additional?
Yes, I also have some of the stone that I propose using on that north facade, if you'd like to take a look at that and just review it. Or if not, that's okay too. I do have the stone here.
I don't have a need for it. I don't know if does anyone else want to?
You can hold it up.
Yeah, that's,
It's not necessarily dirty, but it's dusty. Stone gets a little dusty, so anyways, this is an example of the stone.
Seen that before. Okay.
I'm all good.
okay. Are there any questions for the applicant while he's,
Is this typical of all units?
This would just be on the northernmost unit.
Just one?
This is
Yeah.
the one visible from
This
the road.
one visible.
Dan?
So storage units are allowed in what areas?
There's no zoning district where it's permitted use.
Right.
It's a special use in our commercial and industrial.
It's allowed here with the special.
Okay. So have you looked any other places for storage units rather than this one that's situated where it's at? I mean, do you have storage units in other places?
I have looked many places actually, and to the second part of your question, I'm a seasoned investor. I have about 55 rental units, but they're all residential rental units. And what brought me here
is one of the properties. It's a 14-unit apartment building in Rockton near Taylor Freezer, if you're familiar with that area. Adjacent to the 14-unit apartment building is a 14-unit garage to support the apartment building. And my wife and I have owned that building for about 34 years. The management, the upkeep of those two buildings is apples and oranges. And so my wife and I have always been interested in looking at a self-storage rather than more residential rental units.
Thank you.
Anything else for the applicant? You may be seated. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, to open it up for discussion, well, let's talk about item 9, ordinance 1724, special use permit for self-storage in the general industrial district, and looking to have a motion to approve with the conditions.
So moved.
And second?
Second.
Second. Thank you, Jim. Any discussion around this item? And this is just for having a special use permit in the industrial use area.
Yeah, I've got some discussion on it. I think I drove by there and it's a nice area for industrial and but I have to agree with Carrie that it doesn't bring the city any sales tax. It doesn't bring what I feel is an added benefit to the light industrial area. And to have these other things where it's not going to look really nice, you're going to have a fence that in 10 years is going to be rusty. I just don't see it being a good addition to that area. So I just,
But it's
hard
been
time
vacant
with
for
it.
30 years.
That's right.
Well, more than that. 'cause it's-
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's when that's when the lot was platted
Yeah,
30 years
yeah.
ago. There's been an opportunity for somebody to develop it in the industrial use there. And it hasn't
yeah,
happened.
for 20 years we've been stagnant, since 2008. So
Jim, did you have?
Yeah, I agree in part with what Dan said. Storage doesn't bring any jobs to the village either. But on the other hand, neither does a vacant lot.
It brings people.
But overall, I have no problem with it.
Did you have anything?
I didn't. I
Okay.
mean, I'm torn just because I do agree it's not highest and best use and that you have to look at that. But yet again, if I'm not a fan of more storage, but what else, if we're not generating any revenue from that particular lot in the village? So
Okay, if nothing else on this, do the commissioners agree with the finding of fact?
Yes.
Yes.
And can we get a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Danny Levitch,
Yes.
Commissioner Holmes,
Yes.
Commissioner Stanton,
yes,
Commissioner Fluger,
no,
Commissioner Hankins,
Yes.
and Commissioner Klingers, yes.
Okay, this will go forward with a positive recommendation to the Planning and Economic Development Committee. And now let's talk about item number 9, ordinance number 1824, variance from the building materials industrial design standard. Do we have a motion to approve the agenda item with conditions? Oh, did I say 10?
Okay.
10, sorry. I might.
No, you got it right.
Okay, it's 10.
It's ordinance 18-24.
Yep. Do we have a motion to approve with conditions?
so moved.
Second.
In a second. Okay, any discussion around this particular topic? I mean, I'll say I would prefer them all to look this nice and fancy, but this is the one that's on the side where people are going to see it. So I think I'm good with it.
is this the fencing or this is
No,
the?
this is for
This is the
the
building materials.
building
With
materials.
building materials. Any other topics? Okay. Do the commissioners agree with findings of fact?
Yes.
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 Okay, and roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Fluger,
No.
Commissioner Hankins,
Yes.
Commissioner Klinger, is a yes. Commissioner Danilovich,
Yes.
Commissioner Holmes,
Yes.
Commissioner Stanton.
No.
So this will move forward with a positive recommendation to the next meeting here. So the last item for this particular location is item number 11 on the agenda, ordinance number 1924, variance from solid fencing requirement for self-storage use. Do we have a motion to approve the agenda item with the conditions on this one?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, topics, discussion?
I'm just not a big fan of that, not having solid fencing for this. The one that we have right down the road, I mean, it looks fantastic. I think that should be the model that we go after. That's in the mall there. I think it's beautiful, actually.
Well, that was supposed to, that's outdoor self-storage
Yeah,
rather than enclosing
But-
storage units.
but it's,
Yeah.
yeah.
In an industrial area, I don't think you need a fancy fence to. The
There's
fact that
just-
we're getting a brick facade is nice.
You know, we have the one on 173 that you can see right through the fence. That's all open.
Yeah.
And this-
It's nice because you can see through the fence to see if there's anybody in there that should be in there.
That's a
And
good
this was
point.
the coated,
I concede to that. That's a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. So that's a little upgrade.
Okay, if there's no other discussion, then have the commissioners agreed with, or read and agreed to the findings of fact?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, and a roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Klinger is a yes. Commissioner Danilovich,
Yes.
Commissioner Holmes,
Yes.
Commissioner Stanton,
Yes.
Commissioner Fluger,
No,
Commissioner Hankins.
Yes.
So this one will move forward with positive recommendation as well. So the Planning and Economic Development Committee is meeting March 4th at 5:30, and we recommend that you attend that meeting as well. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next up on the agenda, number 11, adopting official zoning map for the Village of Machesney Park.
Number 12.
12? 12? Oh, 12. We need to stop Roman numerals, I guess.
I need to think about it.
I'm giving you an extra.
So it's time to adopt our official zoning map. Like always, the zoning map includes all zoning changes that were approved up until December 31st of last year. We only had 2 zoning changes last year. There was the southwest corner of Anjali and Mitchell, that zoning change from multifamily to commercial neighborhood. It was kind of contentious, but the village board did approve that. And then just recently, we had the zoning change for North Park Public Water District, the north side of the Machesney Elementary Schoolyard, so they could apply for a special use for a new well house there. Those were the only 2 zoning changes this past year, and we did not annex anything, so our village boundaries stayed the same.
Okay. Do we need
We
to,
do not need a finding of fact
okay, so is just roll call to approve?
unless anybody has any questions.
Any
I
questions?
just got one question. So when we did not approve the Angela Way to be,
No, we did not recommend.
we did not recommend it,
No.
and then it got overridden.
The board
The
approved.
board
Board
voted
approved
to
it.
approve it.
Was that a unanimous vote?
I
Do you know?
don't think so, but I don't
Hmm.
recall offhand
I
what
don't.
the vote was.
Yeah,
I thought there was a couple that voted against it.
so if we vote yes
It
on,
shouldn't bear on your vote here.
Yeah.
it should, we
No.
don't let say,
Yeah,
okay,
this is a-
but I disagree or
No, this is
anything
a
with,
Technical thing that.
yeah, okay.
I can't see how you can vote no on this.
Again,
This is a given. This is a 2
Dang.
fight.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't like.
a
the
thorn in
color.
my side, it's really
Change the
pricking me,
colors.
I don't know.
Okay, and I think, okay, all in favor,
Wait, no,
No.
we gotta have, it's
We
an
have a
ordinance.
motion?
Oh,
Let's
so we
have
have
a
to-
roll. Let's have a roll.
roll call? Okay.
Oh, wait, did anybody make a motion?
Oh,
Did we get a motion?
No, we don't.
no.
No.
So that's what I was asking, if we needed a motion. Can we get a motion to approve item, ordinance number 2024, adopt official zoning map for the village?
So moved.
And second?
Second.
Okay.
That's a easy.
No findings of fact, but so we do need a roll call vote for this one, please.
All right, let's go Commissioner Pluger,
Sure, why not? Yes.
Commissioner Hankins,
Well, it hurts me, but yes.
Yeah.
Commissioner
You guys are
Klinger,
just messing with me
yes. Commissioner Danny Levitch,
Yes.
Commissioner Holmes,
Yes.
Commissioner Stanton.
Yes.
Okay, is there any other, any other business to
What
do?
does that mean?
Nothing, and I see no one for public comment, so we are, all, can we get a motion to adjourn?
Motion adjourned.
And a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Meeting adjourned.
It's not there.